Hi, I'm Jim and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop, and we're going to pull the carburetor off this thing and clean it. And I wanted to show you the end play in my crankshaft. I had 25 or 26 thousandths, and according to them, the allowable is from 2 thousandths to 22 thousandths. So seeing this is about an $800 engine, I want to get that out of there and make sure it didn't have any problems after I sell this large snapper. Now I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the indicator, but it's on 0 right now. And I have about 18 thousandths on the needle. So it did help to change the gasket thickness. Some engines, when you buy a kit, it comes with, I bought one kit for a 8-horse. It came with 3 gaskets, just so you can take care of this issue if you had it on that machine. We're going to roll this thing back upright. Nice part about these snappers is if you leave the drive disc on, it makes a really nice stand to hold the engine up. So we're going to pop some of this stuff off of here. Now this gasket, this filter don't look bad, but this also apparently is factory and hasn't been worked on, because I have never seen a after filter, or it sucks the opposite way. This is a pre-filter, then you have your filter. I've never seen one of these put in the machine. When I've taken them apart, all that's ever been in there are these filters. Now I'm going to take this cover off, make it a little easier to get the carburetor out of there. I've got a number 45 Torx on the front side of this engine. I guess we'd call this the front side. It's where the valves are. I don't know if that's what they call it or not. I'm missing my socket. I thought I had it sitting here. They're gone. Okay. I don't know where they are. I must have used them on the other side of the room. I guess I'll be right back. Don't you just hate when that happens? Can't remember where you left something the last time you used it? I try to put things back right away so I don't have that problem. Okay, this should lift off of here now. And sometimes these have a small hidden screw down in here. The hole's there, but the screw wasn't. So I guess we're just going to take the carburetor off and leave the, I guess you would call it an intake, on the machine. Wow, you got that tight enough. You don't want them to fall off, that's for sure. We'll pop this off of here. Boy, this thing is really filthy. I don't know if you can see all the dirt stuck in these fins. These are cooling fins. It'd be a good idea once in a while, if you got a power washer, to blow the dirt off of the engine so it can cool itself properly. You would hate to burn up one of these engines, that's for sure. Now, I don't know if, well, that's not even tight. That one is. This one wasn't even tight. I would imagine that's probably metric. Yep. We'll get a deep socket so maybe we can reach into here. Now you want to keep track of where these linkages hook up. Let me wiggle you over here. This one's got a double bolt, I guess. It's got a long bolt on this end that holds the carburetor on, and then it's also threaded on the other end to hold on the extension for the air box for your filter. Now this can slide right out of here, and it hooks in the first hole from the bottom and comes up. This is your governor rod. We'll stick that right back in that slot where it goes. This one we're going to have to turn upside down, I guess, to get that out of there. And then the little spring. A lot of people ask me, we'll unplug the solenoid. What is the little spring for? It is so small, it can't really do anything. Well, it keeps your engine from surging. And what happens over time is this shaft will become loose and it will move slightly by itself just from engine vibration. And the hole in the top where the linkage hooks into will get slightly elongated. And that will allow this thing to turn a little bit, not much, but it'll do it just enough to make the RPMs on the engine surge. So that little tiny spring pulls on this and keeps it from doing that. That's all that spring is for. So if yours gets lost or broken, it's not going to be the end of the world on keeping the engine running. Now I got a tappet wrench here, and it's a 17/32 to get this solenoid off of here. That holds the float bowl on. And you want to check these and make sure the little plunger is working. It's best to also do it when it's hooked to the battery. And you can turn your key off and on, and you should hear this thing clicking. If you can't hear it, you should be able to feel it clicking. If it doesn't, you're probably going to have to replace it. Well, the inside of this isn't, boy, I need a new gasket, I think. This thing is like a rock. The inside's not terrible, but it certainly isn't anywhere near clean. a lot of crud in there. And that's mostly from ethanol fuel. Now if we can get this pin out of here, that thing is, they usually leave them long so you can grab a hold of them and pull them out, but this thing is flush on both sides. This one does not have a small little spring that keeps the needle valve, and this is one with rubber on the end of it, which is very nice. They seal up better. I've got a screwdriver here somewhere that I ground down just for carburetors. You need a fairly wide on the point and something, a pretty good sized screwdriver, but they flare out and you can't get them down in the hole. So I took this one to the shop, and you can see the step on the side right here, I think. I stuck this in a mill, a vise. I milled that off until it fit down inside of here so I can get the jet out. That one didn't break loose too bad. This also fits the little jet on the side. Now sometimes when you screw this little side jet in, if it's in place, it won't allow you to unscrew the main jet because the threads are gonna, the end of that is sticking into the threads, and it will lock it up when you try to pull it out of here. The threads are totally out, but this is really gummy. A lot of small holes in here. You should be able to see through them. And most of them I can. These smaller ones down here, I can't see through them. So that needs a good cleaning. And we're gonna throw the rest of this thing over here in the ultrasonic cleaner. Now, I'll try to get the camera over here so you can see what it's gonna do, but it'll look like it's smoking. That's the dirt coming off of and out of the carburetor. And this gasket does not look like it wants to come off. I guess I'll throw it in there with the gasket on and see if that loosens it up. Otherwise, I'll have to scrape it off and make a new gasket. I'll put the cover over here. This light on is probably going to make it worse. And I'm going to pause this and switch cameras so it'll be a little easier for you to see what's going on in this tank. Okay, I forgot when you turn on this ultrasonic cleaner, it totally messes up the sound on the camera. It totally wipes it out. But what I was trying to let you see is what it looks like when it actually starts vibrating. It looks like there's smoke coming out of the carburetor, and that is just the dirt coming out of all the crevices and ports, all the holes in the carburetor. I grab a tool here to point at what's going on, but you can't hear anything I'm trying to say. If you look close at the top of the carburetor, you can really see it smoking, and on the inside also. But I'm going to let that soak for about 25 minutes, and then we'll put it back together. So I'll be back in 25 minutes, and we'll see if that's clean and all the little passages are open on the emulsion tube. Oh, I'm going to throw this little jet in there also. I seen these online, and I bought a couple of them. They're a little basket you can put parts in, but they open, they're spring loaded, and you don't have to worry about losing the small little parts in the bottom of this thing. Right now, it's not bad because I just cleaned the mix I have in there that I clean. I have mostly water, and I use Simple Green and a bunch of Dawn dish soap. This stuff really does a job cleaning. With both them cleaners and the water being hot, does an awesome job of cleaning that thing up. So I guess we'll just be back in about 25 minutes. Hang on. Okay, I got this out of the cleaner, and I'm just finishing cleaning out all these holes out of the emulsion tube, making sure they're all open. Some are holes that go all the way through, and some just go into the tube. Now there's quite a few of them in here. You want to make sure they're all clean, and down through the center of the tube. I don't know if you'll be able to see too many. You can see there's 4 of them right here. There's 4 here, and there's 4 here. There's 1 right here. And on the other side, there's 1 right there. Them do not go all the way through. They just go into the tube. But you want to make sure all of them are open and with no debris around the outside of the hole. That's where these this is just a set of tip cleaners for a cutting torch. Well, for oxygen acetylene torch. You can get these at any place where you get your torch supplies. They work extremely well for cleaning out holes in this thing. There's, I don't know how many different sizes. There's 12 different sizes on this one, and you can find one that will go through each one of these holes pretty tightly. Now they've got almost like a file on the end of them. You don't want to file the hole bigger. You just want to make sure it's clean and there's no obstruction or crap in the hole from the gas that we burned today. Now I'm going to do this little one too. I mean, this is so small. I guess you can tell I have something there. Find one that just fits. Make sure that hole is clean. That one's just a hair tight. That one fits in there. Now we can put this thing back together. We'll drop the emulsion tube in here first. One thing you want to check before you put this carburetor all together and back on the machine is there's 2 screws in the butterfly for the, I guess, the RPMs or the acceleration of the engine. These 2 right here. I get a lot of, and I did a video on this, I get a lot of people that get a hold of me. My engine's running wide open. What do I do? Check to see if that is in place. All you have to do is take your air box off, have your choke open, and accelerate it. Make sure that butterfly is in place. I had one viewer that called me and I told him, check your butterfly. Oh no, he texted me back and he said, no, it can't be that. That's the last thing. He says, by golly, you're right. He said the 2 screws are nowhere to be found and the little butterfly is laying down in the, I guess, the intake. On a car, this would be an intake manifold or an intake tube, whatever you want to call it. But he said that's where it was. I said, well, you might want to pull the head off and make sure them screws aren't stuck in the piston where they're going to cause more damage. Hopefully they blew right on through and they're rattling around in your muffler. You can take the muffler off first. This is the muffler off this engine, and shake it. If you hear something in there rattling around, you can wiggle it and get them to fall out. Hopefully they'll be inside the muffler. Because you pull the head off, then you got to get a head gasket, and it's a lot more work. So hopefully that's the issue. We'll get this thing put back together. We'll put this little jet in here. I have no idea what that's called. Outside of a pain to get it back in. That thing is really small. There we go. Now we'll stick the needle valve in. Now we got to try to hang that on the float. This is always a fun part. If you shake like I do, you might have to do this a couple of times. Hey, it went in there. Now we'll stick this pin in. Make sure it's still hooked in there where it's supposed to be. My boss used to rebuild a lot of boat motors, and he always had to work on the carburetors. And he told me a good way to check to see if your float, or not your float, but your needle valve is working properly is put a vacuum on it. I don't know if you heard that, but I always just suck on the end of this tube, put my tongue on it. It should hold a vacuum. You should not leak off or slowly drift down, whatever you want to call it. But that's the way I always check them. I imagine you can get a vacuum pump or something, and if you want to spend the money for one, myself, it works for me. Now, this float bowl, that didn't come very clean. At least all the grit and crap is out of it. The only thing I don't like is my gasket is like a piece of wood. I don't think I'm even going to put that back on for right now. I'm just going to finger tighten it together, and I'll have to order me a new bowl gasket. So we'll just set that on there. we'll screw this in here to hold it together. That's something you can change at any time, even when it's mounted on the machine. That's not that big of a deal. The gasket did come off when it was in there, and I'm glad it did because it has a passageway in here. You can see there's kind of like a semi-circle cut around here with some holes. There's a lot of crap in them holes, or I should say in this passageway. A lot of dirt, debris. So I'm glad this came off so I could clean that. So we're going to put this back on the same way it came off because the surface is raised where it was compressed. So I want to put it back on the same way so I have a little better chance of it sealing the way it was. We'll put these linkages on first. This one's the hardest one to get on. And this little tiny spring, I think you girls would have a better time with this because you have a little bit smaller fingers. My big fingers just don't want to let that spring go in there where it belongs. You know what? I think I'm going to hook that up first. I think it'll be a lot simpler. There. There we go. Now we get the choke rod in there. Oh, that's got dirt on it. This thing really needs to be cleaned. That goes in the first hole, or the closest hole at the end of this plastic handle, or whatever you want to call it. It slides into a slot right there. Now we'll get this gasket back in place. Put these screws in here. I guess technically these are bolts. And we'll screw it on. Well, the carburetor looks really nice, but the rest of the engine's a pigsty. I'll be cleaning that up this spring, definitely before I try to sell this thing. Well, at least this way, this bolt will be tight now. Before it was not. And for right now, we'll plug that wire in here to keep it from dangling in my way. I got to get an oil filter on it. I'm going to do that off camera, and I'm going to fill this with oil and let it set and make sure that my new lip seal around the crank is not leaking before I bolt this thing all back down on the machine. Oh, it's even got dirt inside of here. I guess I should have boiled this thing. I do have some questions once in a while. How does the linkage work, and how does the governor work? So to get a little better view of all that, I had an old engine and I cut it in half, well, cut a third of it off, and it's the side where the carburetor mounts, and it's a little easier to show everybody where the linkages hook up. Now this is the same carburetor that's on that machine, except it's so bad I couldn't rebuild it. The emulsion tube is stuck in the bottom, the float bowl is just full of crap. But this will show you, this is the slot I was talking about that the linkage for the governor hooks into, and when you throttle it up, I got the little throttle cable on here, it pushes on that linkage and closes the choke. I can push it up far enough. There we go. It closes the choke. But it helps out a lot of viewers that are trying to figure out how to get their linkage back on their carburetor, because they forgot to take a picture like I've done a few times. So now all we gotta do is stick the cover back on. Boy, I can't believe how greasy and oily that is. I guess I'll stick the cover on, but I'm gonna have to take it off this spring to power wash this thing. Or might be able to do that next week. Right now we got snow. It's 35 degrees, 36 degrees outside, which is warm for us. But next week it's supposed to hit 40 and rain. So if we get some 40-degree weather next week, I'm going to take this bad boy outside and clean it. So I guess I'll set the cover on and just start the screws and leave it so I can get it off easy and clean this thing. So if you got any questions, let me know. And until next time, work safe, have fun, and I'll talk to you soon. So long.